The yeas are 49. The nays
It's
are 51.
back to the drawing board for congressional Democrats trying to find a legislative path to protect abortion rights under federal law.
The motion is not agreed to.
The vote to advance the Women's Health Protection Act failing in the Senate as expected. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer arguing the vote was important in light of that bombshell leaked draft Supreme Court opinion written by Justice Alito suggesting federal abortion rights could soon be overturned.
For the first time in 50 years, a conservative majority, an extreme majority on the Supreme Court is on the brink of declaring that women do not have freedom over their own bodies.
The Women's Health Protection Act would protect access to abortion under federal law and state restrictions and limitations like mandatory ultrasounds and waiting periods, and would give healthcare providers the right to provide abortion care.
So as expected, that Women's Health Protection Act that was brought in by Democrats yesterday in the Senate did fail. Because of course you needed the 60 votes in order to pass that. That would codify abortion rights and women's rights in the country in light of seeing what the Supreme Court is set to decide on Roe versus Wade. So the final tally on what was 49 to 51. And I was gonna say the surprising part, but it actually wasn't that surprising because Joe Manchin was the one Democratic senator that did vote with Republicans against women's rights on this. Let's go to what his thoughts were as this went down.
I think we all know why we're here today, and I want to explain my position. Abortion to each one of us is very near and dear to us. It's personal. It shouldn't be political. And today what we're going to have is a piece of legislation in front of us. It is not what I was hoping for and what I expected. I was hopeful that the Democratic Party, having control of the agenda, would put a piece of legislation forward that would codify Roe v. Wade. 70% of the American public wants Roe v. Wade to be codified, as it's been precedented law for 50 years. The bill we have today to vote on, the Women's Health Protection Act, and I respect people who support, but don't make no mistake, it is not Roe v. Wade codification. It's an expansion. It wipes 500 state laws off the books. It expands abortion. And with that, that's not where we are today. We should not be dividing this country further than we're already divided. And it's really the politics of Congress is dividing the country. It's not the people. They're telling us what they want. And it's just disappointing that we're going to be voting on a piece of legislation which I will not vote for today.
There's a lot there. And maybe I'll get your thoughts here before we go to more details, because Joe Biden talked about it and Joe Manchin, as you saw there, was talking about it. No matter what the subject is, I've noticed that Joe Manchin always talks about how we need to stop dividing the country. And I would totally be on board with this, except there's just one problem with it, and I just can't bring myself to do that because it will violate my friends in the minority. It would eliminate 500 laws across the country, across states that are looking to restrict women's rights. So if you're looking to codify women's rights, of course, it would be against people that are looking to take away women's rights. I mean, that's just part of the situation. So anything that you're looking to legislate that's gonna do something is gonna go against something else. That's why there's votes. That's why there's people that vote for something and those that vote against it. But if your reasoning is that we need to stop dividing the country, why does it always fall on the shoulders of Democrats to stop dividing the country? We talked about these leak tapes yesterday from that idiot, Lindsey Graham, and how he felt like Joe Biden was going to unify the country. But then as soon as he came out doing that, he's tweeting things out and calling him this divider, great divider. It's not going to be united unless both sides look to unite. Where are we going to find that common ground? It's always on one party's shoulders. For your first thoughts, just first off this vote, and also Joe Manchin's comments on why he didn't vote this way.
I'm just tickled by the 70% number, because that happens to be the amount of people who in America who were in favor of Build Back Better. But that didn't stop Joe Manchin from telling the Democratic Party and the American people at large, both Democrats and Republicans, to go kick rocks. So that falls on deaf ears for sure. And just the idea that they wouldn't expand it, make no mistake, the Republicans, the next thing they're gonna wanna do is not just let the states ban it if they want to. They're gonna go for a nationwide ban after this. So this idea that it shouldn't be expanded and that Americans don't want it to be expanded in a way to give more people access, or make it so that women can do it further and further into their pregnancy. Americans wanted to just be stripped back. That makes no sense, his approach there.
Well, he's saying that, you got to see what the American people want and then therefore do it. Well, do you look at what the American people want? See, he always finds a nice inside way to do it. But anyway, not Joe Manchin, but also Joe Biden, president, also had he had released a statement about this. I feel like this was written beforehand because they knew where this was gonna go. So he says, once again, his fundamental rights are at risk at the Supreme Court. Senate Republicans have blocked passage of the Women's Health Protection Act, a bill that affirmatively protects access to reproductive health care. This failure to act comes at a time when women's constitutional rights are under unprecedented attack, and it runs counter to the will of the majority of American people. You notice there he said Senate Republicans have blocked passage, and Democrat Senator Joe Manchin also blocking passage. He's always giving him a pass. Therefore, he steps out and says, I'm just Joe Manchin, good old guy from West Virginia, and I'm just here to try and make everything nice and calm between everyone. And I keep getting a pass every time. Joe Biden talks about how Republicans are the ones doing this. There are Democrats that are against women's rights. Joe Manchin is one of them, as he just voted there, which is the point of this bill. We all knew it wasn't gonna pass. The point is to get people on record, and then we'll see what happens in midterms and upcoming elections, and also so that people understand who it is that they've put in office that's not representing them. Continuing on. So the bill was first introduced in February, by the way, also, and it was blocked then, and it included Joe Manchin there as well. So the Senate took up this version of this Women's Health Protection Act, sponsored by Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. The bill would have codified the right to access abortion to federal law and guarantee the right of health care providers to perform abortion services. And a House-passed version of that bill failed to advance in the Senate earlier this year amid Republican opposition. Again, just Republican opposition, huh? Also, Mitch McConnell chimed in after this vote also as well from yesterday. And he blasted Democrats for forcing the vote because that's a little too uncomfortable for him. And he argued that it would attack Americans' conscious rights and religious freedoms, of course. He says, quote, it would overturn modest and overwhelmingly popular safeguards like waiting periods, informed consent laws, and possibly even parental notification, is what McConnell said. So they have those issues with it. I always figured in bills, maybe you talk about things and hash those things out, but we knew from the beginning they had no real reason behind doing that because they're like, well, we need to go and continue to push down this same road. There's no middle ground when it comes to this. There's no unification. It's one way or another. Somebody's gonna be upset, and we'll see who all those folks are. Lastly, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, the couple of Republican senators who say they're for women's rights, but they're still finding ways to not really be there. So both of them voted against this Women's Health Protection Act in February as well, and voted against it again during Wednesday's vote. Susan Collins criticized the Democratic bill in a statement ahead of that vote also. And she said that the bill explicitly invalidates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in connection with abortion and supersedes other longstanding bipartisan conscience laws. So lastly, last thought for me is we're always worried about violating folks who say, their religious, their Bible tells them that this is not what we're supposed to do with America, when the Bible is not the Constitution, number one. But when it comes to other people's rights being lost, maybe whatever they believe in just doesn't seem to matter. And I always wonder why that is. We're still living under the rule of, unless you believe in what Christians and Catholics believe in, you don't have much of a voice in this country when it comes to certain issues because we listen to them only. Why is that the standard?
Yeah, it's all just a little, I don't know. It's quite jarring, honestly, to watch and listen to these people give just like this religious freedom argument where it's like, if you don't want an abortion, don't get one. If you don't believe in abortion, don't have one. Like this, the notion that like I could be sitting here in Los Angeles and I would just be, curled up in a corner because some woman in Vermont aborted her baby who I've never met, never heard. Like it just makes no sense to me that this idea that people are actually losing sleep over this. To me, it's just about cruelty. It's just about, I feel like these people just don't believe in the idea of consequenceless sex, and they just want to impose this stuff on people. Because if it was about, limiting abortions, we'd be talking about stuff like sex education, expanding the access to contraceptions, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, we get to no abortions and just, you're just supposed to not have sex unless you want to have a baby.
Unless you have one of the privileged folks who has access to those types of services.
And I'm glad you said that because every single elite, both Democrat and Republican, because I got my own issues with the Dems here. As soon as they took a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court, the Dems should have been stumping all day, every day. Like, we need to codify this thing because the Republicans are maniacs. These judges are not impartial. They've been bred in places like the Federal Society in order to achieve these specific outcomes. We need to get this done. They've done none of it. But just know for a fact, the reason why the Democrats don't really care for real, because elites, no matter what, whenever they need to, their nannies and mistresses will be able to get an abortion. If they gotta fly them out to Canada when they ban it here in America, or they gotta send them to who, God knows, Europe, who knows, whatever. They will get an abortion for the people in their lives who need one. And that's why they don't actually care.
And also they see this as a great campaign. They're like, oh man, this has come out now. Maybe we can run on this in 22.